Our story begins not with armies, but with a single bullet. It was the 28th of June 1914 when Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife Duchess Sophie found themselves in the heart of Sarajevo. In the blink of an eye, a young Bosnian Serb named Gavrilo Princip fired shots that echoed not just through the streets of Sarajevo, but throughout the world. The Archduke and his wife lay lifeless, their demise igniting a spark that would soon engulf the world in flames. The assassination wasn't just a tragedy, it was a catalyst, a moment that sent shockwaves through the delicate balance of power in Europe. The Archduke's death stirred the pot of political unrest that had been simmering beneath the surface. It was a spark in a tinderbox of nationalistic fervour, imperial ambitions and intricate alliances. Austria-Hungary, backed by their ally Germany, issued an ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia in turn sought support from its Slavic brethren, Russia. And so began a domino effect, as nations across Europe were pulled into a vortex of political intrigue and escalating tensions. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was more than just a grievous loss. It was a harbinger of the chaos to come. A single bullet had set the stage for the first global conflict of the 20th century, a war that would redefine the norms of warfare and redraw the lines on the world map. In the aftermath of the assassination, the world held its breath. Diplomats hurriedly exchanged telegrams, leaders convened in hushed meetings, and military strategists began to prepare for the worst. Little did they know that the world was teetering on the edge of a precipice, and the plunge into the abyss was imminent. Little did anyone know this tragic event would spiral into a global conflict. The stage was set, the players were in place, and the curtain was about to rise on a drama that would reshape the world in ways unimaginable. This was the beginning of the Great War, a war that would leave an indelible mark on the course of history. The echoes of that gunshot in Sarajevo were soon drowned out by the sound of war drums. As the dust settled in Sarajevo, the ominous drumbeat of war began to resonate across Europe. Nations found themselves caught in a whirlwind of events, rapidly mobilizing their forces in anticipation of the looming conflict. In the heart of Europe, Germany, a nation steeped in the Prussian tradition of military excellence, swiftly responded to the call to arms. The German military machine roared to life, with men and materiel flooding into training camps and strategic positions. Simultaneously, the Russian Tsar, Nicholas II, ordered the mobilization of the vast Russian army, a move that sent tremors across the European continent. From the elegant boulevards of Paris to the bustling streets of London, the nations of Europe felt the pull of war. France, haunted by the memory of the Franco-Prussian War, marshalled its forces with a single-minded determination to reclaim Alsace and Lorraine. In contrast, Britain, the world's preeminent naval power, committed its formidable resources to the impending struggle, ensuring the seas would become a crucial battleground. As the gears of war turned, declarations echoed across the continent. The Central Powers, a formidable alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, stood defiantly against the Allied powers, a coalition led by France, Britain and Russia. The stage was set for a conflict of unprecedented scale, a war that would bleed across borders and sear itself into the annals of history. This was not a war of kings and emperors, but a war of nations and peoples. The young and old, the rich and poor, all were swept up in the tide of mobilization. Men bid farewell to their families, leaving behind their homes and jobs to answer the call of duty. They marched off to war, buoyed by a sense of patriotism, a belief in a swift victory, and a naive unawareness of the horrors that awaited them. The world watched in bated breath as the pieces moved into place, the tension palpable, the uncertainty a heavy shroud. The world braced itself on the precipice of a war unlike any before. The stage was set and the dreadful dance of war began on the Western Front. The year was 1914, and the world had plunged headfirst into a conflict like no other. The Western Front, a sprawling network of trenches stretching from the North Sea to the Swiss border, became the arena of a brutal and protracted struggle. Soldiers from all walks of life found themselves thrust into this harsh reality, trudging through the muck and mire of the trenches. Day in and day out, they lived, fought, and often perished in these narrow, claustrophobic corridors. The constant threat of enemy gunfire, the chilling cold, the omnipresent mud, and the vermin that thrived in such conditions made life in the trenches a living nightmare. Yet, amid this grim landscape, moments of humanity shone through. Soldiers on both sides would often engage in leave-and-let-live tactics, unofficial ceasefires where both sides would refrain from aggressive action, allowing each other to rest, eat, and even fraternize. In September of 1914, the first major engagement on the Western Front, the Battle of the Marne, unfolded. A desperate struggle, it saw the German advance halted and pushed back by the Allied forces. A significant turning point, it marked the end of mobile warfare and the beginning of trench warfare. As the war dragged on into 1915, the trenches became more sophisticated, with dugouts and bunkers providing some semblance of protection from the relentless artillery barrages. Yet, the reality remained grim. The Western Front became a deadly stalemate, a war of attrition where inches of ground were won and lost at the cost of countless lives. The Western Front was more than just a physical battleground, it was a psychological one. Soldiers were pushed to their limits, enduring unimaginable horrors and hardships. It was here, in the labyrinth of trenches, that the true face of modern warfare was unveiled. A face marked by brutality, endurance, and the indomitable human spirit. In the labyrinth of trenches, a new kind of warfare was born. War, as it often does, became the mother of invention. In the smoke-filled theatres of World War I, innovation was not just a luxury, but a necessity for survival. As the world found itself entangled in a conflict of unprecedented scale, the tools of warfare underwent a transformative renaissance. The once romanticized notion of cavalry charges and line infantry was quickly replaced with the mechanized might of armored vehicles. The birth of the tank redefined the battlefield. These formidable metal beasts, with their ability to traverse the treacherous maze of trenches and barbed wire, brought about a new era of land warfare. The British Mark I, the world's first tank, is a testament to this technological leap. But the marvels of innovation were not confined to the land alone. The war saw the debut of a weapon as insidious as it was effective: poison gas. A silent killer, it slithered into the trenches, seeping into every nook, cranny and crevice. Its deployment marked a grim milestone in the annals of warfare, a chilling reminder of the lengths nations would go to secure victory. High above the mud and the blood, another technological revolution was taking place. The skies, once the sole domain of birds, became the stage for a deadly aerial ballet. The advent of airplanes shifted the dynamics of warfare, adding a third dimension to the battlefield. Dogfights between nimble biplanes, reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines, even the early stages of strategic bombing, these were all born from the crucible of World War I. These innovations, born from the fires of conflict, did more than just change the way wars were fought. They redefined the very nature of warfare itself, setting the stage for the conflicts of the 20th century and beyond. The technological renaissance of World War I was a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability, albeit driven by the grim necessity of war. These innovations redefined warfare, leaving a legacy that would shape future conflicts. Beneath the waves, another deadly game of cat and mouse unfolded. In this underwater theatre of war, Germany played a dangerous hand. Ignoring the rules of engagement, they launched a campaign of unrestricted submarine warfare. The goal? To cut the lifeline of supplies reaching their enemies. German U-boats, like silent predators, prowled the Atlantic, sinking merchant and passenger ships alike without warning. The most chilling episode was the sinking of the Lusitania, a luxury passenger liner, resulting in the loss of more than 1,000 civilian lives. The world was shocked. The United States, who had so far maintained a stance of neutrality, could no longer sit idle. The unrestricted submarine warfare had a profound effect. It was instrumental in drawing the United States into the war. The arrival of American troops and resources on the European front marked a significant turning point in the conflict. The war had now truly become a global conflict. While soldiers fought on the front lines, a different kind of battle was waged at home. From the bustling cities of London and Paris to the quiet hamlets dotting the countryside, the echoes of World War I reverberated in every corner of the home front. The war wasn't confined to the trenches of the Western Front, it seeped into the fabric of everyday life. As nations threw their entire economies into the war effort, civilians grappled with unprecedented economic hardships. The once familiar rhythm of life was disrupted, replaced by the relentless drumbeat of war. Factories that once produced goods for domestic use now churned out weaponry and supplies for the front lines. Men and women, young and old, found themselves thrust into roles they could have scarcely imagined before the war. Food, fuel, and other essentials became scarce commodities, rationed to ensure the war machine never faltered. The simple act of putting food on the table became a daily struggle, a testament to the far-reaching impacts of the conflict. Yet, amidst the hardship, a spirit of resilience emerged. People adapted, finding ingenious ways to stretch their resources and keep their families fed. But it wasn't just about economic survival. The societal fabric was being rewoven right before their eyes. Women, traditionally confined to the domestic sphere, were now stepping into roles left vacant by men who had gone to fight. They worked in factories, drove ambulances, and served as nurses. They became the backbone of the home front, proving their mettle in a world that had often overlooked their capabilities. These changes weren't without their challenges, yet they contributed to the overall war effort in immeasurable ways. Every loaf of bread saved, every bullet manufactured, every bandage rolled was a small yet significant victory. It was a collective effort, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the human race when faced with adversity. The war was not just fought in the trenches, but in the hearts and homes of the people. The home front chronicles bear witness to the remarkable resilience and sacrifices of those who stayed behind, their stories an integral part of the larger narrative of World War I. As the war raged on, a revolution was brewing in the East. The year 1917, Russia was at the brink of a political earthquake. The Tsar's rule was faltering, the people were discontent, and the war added fuel to the smouldering resentment. The spark of revolution ignited, consuming the old order. The Romanov dynasty, which had ruled Russia for over 3 centuries, crumbled under the weight of its own contradictions. The Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized the moment, promising peace, land, and bread. In a swift, relentless surge, they dismantled the Tsarist regime, pulling Russia out of the war and signing a separate peace treaty with Germany. This dramatic shift in power dynamics reverberated across the front lines, reshaping the course of the conflict. The Russian Revolution was not just a pivotal moment in Russia's history, but a landmark in the narrative of World War I. The world was changing, and the war had only accelerated its pace. Finally, after 4 long years, the guns fell silent. The year was 1918, and the global crescendo of conflict was about to reach its denouement. On November 11th, at the 11th hour, the armistice was signed, marking the cessation of hostilities in the Great War, the war to end all wars. We must remember that the armistice was not a peace treaty, but a temporary ceasefire, a pause in the tumultuous storm of war. It was signed in a railway carriage in Compiègne, France, between the Allies and Germany. The world held its breath as the ink dried on the document that promised an end to the relentless cycle of violence. As the news of the armistice spread, spontaneous celebrations erupted worldwide. The streets were filled with jubilant crowds, their hearts alight with relief. The deafening sounds of war were replaced with the euphoria of peace. Soldiers weary from battle sheathed their weapons and looked forward to returning home. But the end of the war was also a time of reckoning. The world was left to count the cost of a conflict that had claimed the lives of millions and left even more wounded. Families were mourning, cities lay in ruins, and economies were shattered. The world map was redrawn, empires collapsed, and new nations were born from the ashes of the old. In the aftermath of the war, the Treaty of Versailles was signed in 1919, formally ending the state of war between Germany and the Allied powers. But the peace it promised was fragile, the terms harsh. It sowed the seeds of resentment and discontent, setting the stage for another devastating conflict just 2 decades later. The end of World War I was a turning point in global history, a moment that marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. The world had changed irrevocably, and the lessons learned from this great conflict would shape the course of the 20th century. The world rejoiced, but the echoes of this great war would reverberate through history. The Great War had ended, but its impact was far from over. Its legacy, like the echoes of a distant artillery barrage, reverberates through the annals of history. It was an era of colossal shifts and transformations that would shape the world we inhabit today. The redrawing of borders was not merely an act of cartography, but a testament to the power dynamics that reshaped nations and empires. The birth of the League of Nations, a beacon of hope amidst the ruins, represented humanity's aspiration for lasting peace. Yet perhaps the most profound legacy was etched in the hearts and minds of a generation that bore witness to the horrors of war, yet emerged resilient, their spirit unbroken. Their tales, their sacrifices, their memories live on, a poignant reminder of a world transformed by conflict. World War I forever altered the course of history, its echoes still heard in our world today.